Let's start on time by starting out on time. Thank you all for coming. Obviously, it was a historic election last night. We have a historic opportunity ahead of us. It's, in our opinion, it's not a time for celebrating, it's a time to get to work. The voters of Minnesota sent a clear message that jobs, the economy, and spending is what they're most concerned about. It's what they're focused on. It's what they asked us to be focused on. We are going to many of you in this room, especially with the Capitol Corps, have heard this many times, and we're going to keep repeating it over and over because this is what the job providers, the business women and men of Minnesota said to us. You in government want to do something to restart our economy and reinvigorate our economy. It's quite simple. You get government off of our backs, out of our pockets, and out of our way. That's what we've focused on. Our candidates up here are the reason that we're here today. We would not be here if it not were for the quality, and I hope you don't mind, but I've given each one of our freshmen 5 minutes up here to be ready. The really good news, though, is Garofalo isn't talking, so we'll be done by 3 o'clock, no problem. But it is an historic election, but it's also, like I said, it's an opportunity, but it's also a big responsibility now to get on the ground and lead. We're going to start working day one. A lot of the things you're going to see aren't going to be big surprises. Reforming government, the Sunset Commission. How many of you have heard us talk about the Sunset Commission how many different times? Looking at the regulatory process here in the state of Minnesota. Getting real citizens involved in their government to the point where if we have 5 agencies that deal with clean water, can we do it with 2 or 1? That's a unique opportunity, but it's also what we've heard from time and time again, what the citizens have actually asked for. I will be real quick, and I do want to say a couple of thank yous. Some of our members who are here, Matt Dean, who is the steering committee chair, our member who handles our campaigns, Pat Garofalo, one of our key folks when it comes to helping out freshmen, when it helps coming for debate training, and then what our Minnesota version of the architect, which he's going to kill me for saying this, but Ian Marsh, the guy who ran our operation from a campaign standpoint, is probably one of the most talented and brilliant young minds that I've seen in politics in 21 years. I am very, very proud of the work he did. I'm very proud of the work our members did. You'll find out soon enough that our members not only stepped up when it came to door knocking, lit dropping, and fundraising, but they gave of themselves. We will raise over $100,000 from our members for our caucus for this election. That is our members stepping up and doing a lot of heavy lifting in their own races, but it's also a testament to what they believed in the candidates we had all across the state. So I thank you to all our members up here. Thank you for those folks that hung in there late. There's a few that were still out there. There's a few recounts that we're going to have coming up, but we feel very confident with those races as well.
Representative Zeller's Mark Dayton said that if he does, in fact, go ahead and becomes elected after a recount, he will still likely propose tax increases. The budget that he had planned to, would tax increases be dead on arrival in the House?
You know, I think it's a little bit premature, he said he didn't want to be presumptive out in the hallway. I'm going to take him at his word. I think there's going to be a recount with the governor's race. We'll talk about that at that time. But what we have heard from business owners, families, again, I use the Red Box example. My neighbor said, I want you in government to go to Red Box once in a while. We don't go to the movies anymore because it costs $40 to go to a movie. We go to Red Box and get a movie, and we go to Target and get a box of microwave popcorn. So I think the business owners, the families across the state of Minnesota that have to live within their means have said that we don't have any more money to give you, and you need to live within your means just like we have to in our homes.
Can I translate that into no new taxes?
We're going to live within our means.
What will the caucus be looking for a majority leader? Might that person be standing here?
That'll be up to the caucus to decide.
Is it going to be geographic balance? Is it important you being from the suburbs, the other person being from a rural area? We're hearing that.
You know what, Mary? I think it's just premature to talk about that stuff. We'll have an organizing caucus on Saturday. We'll get an idea what our members are going to what they're going to be looking for. But the good news is we've got a great bench for a lot of leadership positions. We'll get to that process on down the road, but we're going to start that on Saturday with our organizing caucus.
Will you vote Saturday?
Well, for Speaker, we will, yes.
Speaker.
Where will social issues?
Unique window that's going to exist.
Hold on. Go ahead.
Where will I realize jobs in the economy are number 1, 2, 3, 4. Will social issues be at all a part of the agenda here with this caucus?
If it isn't something that relates to how to get a new job into the state of Minnesota, I want to be on the radio running ads in Sioux Falls saying, come to Minnesota. We've improved our business climate. It's going to be a great place to come and watch football, baseball, whatever, but we have a business climate now that is leading the nation. It's the top in the Midwest. We have done what we needed to do to make Minnesota competitive with Sioux Falls. Come on back. We're ready for you. So if it deals with jobs, deals with bringing new jobs into the state, with making Minnesota a more competitive business climate, that's what we're going to be focused on. Yes, ma'am.
There appears to be a unique window that may be created with this recount in which Governor Pawlenty will, in fact, be the governor of Minnesota, and you will have control of both houses, the House and the Senate. What plans do you have for that unique window, which theoretically could last an entire session, possibly? And have you had any discussions about what you will do in that time and what kind of an agenda you will follow and try and push through?
Again, with all due respect, that's a lot of what ifs, maybes, could happen, might happen, sort of could happen. We're going to let, I think we'll know a lot more at the end of the week. And then we can reassess. But I think it's premature to make any of those decisions right now. Again, we know where we stand. We have a few recounts that we're going to be focused on. We know where the Senate stands. We're going to look forward from our perspective and start putting together what we believe, again, not a big shock to a lot of the folks in the room here, what our agenda is going to be, which is jobs, the economy, and living within our means.
But have you had discussions about what she's talking about? Not
No,
many
not yet.
decisions. You haven't had any discussions?
Not yet.
Do you plan to move quickly to pass a budget that would reduce the deficit, the $6 billion deficit, and then send it to the governor, whoever he is, whether it's Pawlenty, Everett, Dayton?
Well, again, first and foremost, I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We'll have a November forecast, and then we're going to have a February forecast. Minnesota's been a little bit ahead of the recovery, where nationally where we've been. Let's get an idea where we are then. But again, we're going to spend what we take in. So the $6 billion budget deficit only assumes that we're going to spend at 17–18%. The King Banyan, one of our new members coming in, said it very simply. He's an economist from St. Cloud State. We're going to spend about $30 billion this year. If things go the way they are, kind of trug along the way they are, we're going to get about $33 billion to spend in the next budget cycle. 7 to 8% should be enough to live within our means. That's what we're going to focus on. If the economy picks up, if our farmers, one of the things that's beneficial to us is the price of a lot of commodities around the state of Minnesota has been better than expected. So if the farm community, if business owners, the folks that are out there every day starting small businesses or expanding on them, keep doing better, and it gets a little bit better, we'll have a little better idea of where we are with the budget. But I think it's a little premature to say we're going to drop a budget on the table tomorrow.
If the new governor is not seated in January, does that slow down your efforts?
Again, it's a what if that I would just rather wait. Let's get through this week. Let's see what starts with the recount, and then we can talk about those things.
Do you plan any structural reforms in the House committee system?
Absolutely. Thanks, Bill.
What sort of things?
What sorts of things?
A lot of what we've said in the past, I think lining up with our Senate colleagues where we have a tax committee, a healthcare committee, and education committee, and not have 15 subcommittees over here, 17 different committees over there that don't look a lot alike. That's what what the voters of the state have asked for, is to reorganize, to rebuild government, to, a shocking thing, if you go out and ask any business owner how many of them have got the same marketing plan or distribution plan that they had in 1972, most of them will look at you and laugh. We're under the same model. So we're going to look, and especially with our Senate colleagues, look at lining up those committees and then getting rid of a lot of waste. They added, 38, 40, 45% more committees when they took the majority a few years ago. There'll be some things that are naturally there that we've had that in the past that they've had. The Bioscience and Technology Committee was something that Representative Paul Coles chaired when we were, I think, sophomores. So that's something, especially, for our perspective at Medtronic and Boston Scientific, St. Jude's here, that's something that's necessary. But there's a lot of subcommittees we're going to be able to pare away. And the flow chart of where government, how it looks down here, shouldn't be a plate of spaghetti on the table. It should be some real easy north, south, east, west functions.
Representative Zellers, with a House and Senate controlled by Republicans, how is that likely to impact an issue like expanded gambling? That's an issue that there are Democrats and Republicans for and against it. Is it any more likely to pass in a Republican-controlled legislature with a governor in Mark Dayton, if he is elected, who is in favor of it as well?
You know what, Tom? Again, that's another one of those things that's maybe a January discussion.
People talked about it on the campaign trail. So
Sure.
and you've been elected. You've got some kind of a mandate here.
Sure.
How is that likely to be impacted?
What we've maintained all along is we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. So if you spend within your means, we don't need the additional revenue for whatever source it comes from, whether it's sales tax, whether it's gambling revenue. Again, we're going to focus focused on living within our means. That's an uphill battle for later on. I don't know, where Governor Dayton's coming on that. I think he was maybe for it early on, but maybe he's backed away from it. That's a question for him, but that's a policy initiative for January discussion. Right now, if it brings jobs into the state, if it has something to do with increasing the environment that we have to build better economy, build a better job base for us, that's what we're focused on.
Could it be an area of compromise if you don't want to go along with the tax increases he'd like? Could that be an area of potential compromise?
I at this point, again, I think that's something for January. We're talking, our focus is going to be getting ourselves organized, getting our agenda prepared for January and for session.
On Saturday, do you foresee appointing the finance and taxes chairs?
No, I don't think we're going to talk about any of those things right now. We're just going to be focused on the organizing caucus, introducing ourselves to all these great new people up here, showing them where the bathrooms are, where they park, all that kind of stuff.
What do you make of the message from voters here? Mark Dayton just called it a split decision. You have Democrats in constitutional offices, Republicans taking over the legislature. Is it voters saying they want divided government again?
Well, I'm not going to. He's entitled to his opinion. I think the members we have up here, the balance we have both geographically, whether it's Greater Minnesota, the Iron Range, here in the metropolitan area, I think that balance speaks more to where we saw the voters speaking to us when it comes to focusing on and every single one of these. But for all these great candidates up here, we do not have that majority. We don't have that. They were focused on jobs, the economy, and reining in spending all along. So our candidates, I think, actually made the case across the state for us in a very pointed but a very direct way. I'll let Senator Dayton be, he's entitled to his opinion on divided government. I think it's a pretty clear message when the Senate is also joining us in the majority.
What about something like photo ID that seems to be a priority for a lot of the candidates you ran? Is that something you think will be likely to see passing the legislature in the next session?
It's been a key initiative for us all along, but I don't see that as House File 1, 2, 3. That's something for later on. We're focused on jobs and the economy. I mean, if it brings, I don't know how that's going to help the economy, but if reducing the regulatory burden on the state of Minnesota on a business, DigiKey and Thief River Falls, if by doing something, that's our first priority. That's something for later on down the road.
What about a constitutional amendment on gay marriage?
Again, that's not going to do anything to bring a job back from Sioux Falls, from Texas. Austin, Texas has been stealing parts of 3M left and right. I swear they're coming in with moving vans and taking buildings out. So if it does something to help bring jobs back from Austin, Texas, that's what we're focused on.
Leader Zellers, we talked a little bit last night about governing now that you won the majority and you're going to have to govern. Beyond the talking points, what does that mean in practical terms? Talk about what that means.
Sure. Well, what you've seen from a lot of our incumbents up here is bipartisan support. Joe Atkins and I have joked for years up here we have A to Z bills and Z to A bills. When we were in the majority for 4 years, they were Z to A, Zellers Atkins. Now that he's been in the majority for 4 years, they've been Atkins Zellers. I mean, it's real easy if you've been there doing those kind of things before we assume the majority. It's easy to do the work on those things, and if it's a good idea and it comes from Joe Atkins, we're not going to stand in the way and say, well, it's from Democrats, so we're not going to do it. It's a good idea. It brings jobs back to the state. It's exactly what we're going to work on.
No, you guys are fundamentally different on what's a good idea. So I just...
I mean, on a couple of things, one kind of big one has been the tax increases. If you're going to raise a sales tax on clothes, that's going to hurt a family, especially a family with small kids like me. A 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. Swear to God, my boy goes through surgery every 6 months. I mean, that's a hard thing. And it's where families all across the state are. You can't go out and ask them to pay an extra $5 for a pair of shoes or for a winter coat just because government needs to feed the beast more. The citizens of Minnesota have that, from our perspective, and I think all of our candidates up here would say the same thing, is they've spoken loud and clear on that, and we're going to live within our means.
How strange will it be to work with a Senate that is controlled by Republicans? It's literally never happened.
Well, for those of us who know Super Dave, it's going to be great. I mean, quite honestly, it's something that, you always hope for, and you hope that there's a possibility, but I think this is what I would say, again, this is our probationary period, we're going to have a chance to work together to do exactly what we said on the campaign trail, and that is to make Minnesota a much more business-friendly, a much more business-attractive environment. And, Senator Senjum and I traveled around the state last summer with Governor Plenty, with some of our members up here, with some of our candidates showed up. We traveled around the state and listened to the business owners of the state of Minnesota, and they gave us some pretty specific and pretty direct ideas on what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, and then compared it to other states. Here's what I see in Wisconsin. This is what I see down in Iowa. Change that so we can compete on a level playing field, and we'll do great.
Is it going to be important to compromise with if it's a Governor Dayton, so that in 2 years or 4 years from now, the shoe's not on the other foot and Democrats are swept in because there was more gridlock? How important is it to find areas where you can compromise despite the fact you differ so greatly on the issues?
Sure. I think it's so, you look at what Governor Plenty did with, Senator Pogemiller and Speaker Kelleher. They were able to come to a compromise in some pretty epic budget deficits. Maybe we all didn't agree on it. Maybe we all didn't, like the outcome, but we got the budget balanced and we didn't have a special session. We got out of town. I think we'll be able to do the same thing, but it's going to be, if it's a good idea again, and Senator Dayton and I listened pretty clearly across the campaign trail that he was going to be focused on jobs and the economy as well. So I'm going to take him at his word. But I don't want to get down that road because I think Tom Emmer still, there's going to be a recount. We stand behind Tom going through the entire recount process and his ability to, in the end of the day, still be elected the governor.
Rep. Zellers, what advice, if any, have you given before Garofalo gets a hold of him to your new to your new representative lawmakers here?
Stay away from Garofalo. No.
It's too late, Kurt.
We kid because we love. What we've said all along is, you spend more time listening than you do talking. When you go out door knocking, that's where you're going to get the great ideas. Go and listen to your business owners. Go listen to the folks that, when you're door knocking, they're going to give you the greatest ideas. Get out of your way, get off your back, get out of your pocket. Came from a contractor just in the western suburbs. You listen to those folks. They're going to tell you, and it's real easy when when you're listening to your constituents from their perspective. And then what we've all said all along is be prepared to work right away. We're not going to ease our way into this. We're not going to take our time, show you how a bill becomes a law. We've got a lot of folks up here that have fantastic experience. We found people that weren't the first to raise their hand and say, pick me, I want to run for office. He's not here now today, but Rich Murray, our candidate from Albert Lee, it's easy to say no to Garofalo and Dean and Zellers, but he said no to Governor Plenty. The guy who got him to run is Tim Kelly. On the last day of filing, Rich Murray is going to be a phenomenal member for us. He's a business owner, part of his church, a part of his community. He and his kids and his wife were out door knocking hours and hours and hours all summer long. He's a better fit for Albert Lee for well, it's a lot of pressure, I'm just saying. But that's what the advice that has come from our members already. This is how you campaign, this is how you work. They've already instilled in them a really good work ethic. When we get down here, we're going to be able to do the same thing.
Can we hear from a couple of your freshmen? John Kriesel, can we talk to you for a second about what did the voters say to you? What kind of message did you send to voters, and what did they send to you?
A lot of it was they're tired of the fighting between parties, and that was one of the things. They just want the tone of government changed, as well as jobs in the economy. There was a lot of people that were concerned about losing their job. They were currently working, but things weren't looking good for the company they worked for, and they were just overall concerned. And so I learned a lot from them. It was a good experience.
Does that mean you'd be more willing to compromise with the Dayton? Since you want a tone change?
Well, compromise is what keeps me from having to sleep on the couch every night. So, again, I don't know what we're gonna be looking at, but I'm excited to do it. So.
Like I said, get ready for a freshman class.
Good night, everybody.
It's a Costanza approach. Andrew, you want to?
Is there one other freshman who?
What did I hear at the door? In my area, there's a lot of small business owners, and they were saying, I'm Andrea Kiefer. I'm from 56B, which is mostly Woodbury and a little bit in Landfall. A lot of small business owners in Woodbury, and so and it's everything. It's contractors, home interior designers, and they're hurting. The taxes are too high. The legislation is too cumbersome, and so what was happening is some of them really wanted to grow their business. Maybe buy another truck for the flooring business, And they found that all the hoops they had to jump through discouraged them from even doing it. They said, you know, by the time I went through this, paid the licensing fees, paid for this and that, they decided it was a bad business decision. So that, you know, and small business owners are really what's going to get us out of this recession. They provide about 70 to 80% of new jobs created. So that's what I heard. Thank you.
Anything else?
Talk, with Representative Emmer?
I have not yet. No, I have not.
If you're speaker, how's the, other than the committee things that you talked about, what differences are we going to see?
I think you're going to see from a lot of our members, I mean, there's a couple right there. When you get to meet some of the small business men and women that are going to come into our caucus, I think you're going to hear real live, on the ground, here's what I see every single day. I mean, Representative Downey's a great example. In tax committee, we'd have the debate about whether or not if we cut the business tax rate, would it mean that job providers would come into the state or stay out of the state? And some of the things that we heard from those that haven't signed the front of the check, just maybe signed the back of the check, was, well, that's not what happens. Businesses don't do that. Keith could sit up in tax committee and say, yeah, it is. I know these folks. They've come into the state or they've left the state. I think you're going to see that from our members from all across the state, whether it's Dave Hancock up north, Rich Murray from Albert Lee. Roger Crawford is a small business owner from Mora who has been in the title and real estate business for decades. They're going to come in and have a real-world perspective about what it's like to sign the front of the paycheck, to have to go to an employee and say, I'm sorry, but we just don't have the income. We've lost jobs. We've lost customers, we've lost clients. That kind of experience, I don't care how long you're down here at the Capitol, you can't learn through informational hearings. That's real world, school of hard knocks learning that when you come down here, you bring that to this place. We're all going to be better for a vast majority of these the folks that are coming in. We're going to be a better institution because of them.
Leader Sellers, you spoke a lot about business people. What about the rest of the Minnesotans that aren't in business? What message do you have for them?
Well, those that are maybe don't own a business, they're working for somebody who's running a business, or
they're not.
Right. Well, and that's our focus. We want them to get back to work. I mean, that's our message to those that are right now are either looking or have been looking. We're going to do whatever we can to find you a job. We don't want you to just continue where you're at. We want you to get back to work. We want you to and then for those that are here that are worried about their jobs, it's actually what Andrea said is real. The business community across the state said over and over again, if you can, just calm the waters. We're sitting back because we don't know what government's going to do. Cap and tax, the cap and trade, the new healthcare legislation, regulatory stuff. We don't know what's going to happen, so we need to just sit back. We're just sitting on our Capitol waiting to see what happens. So if we can calm the waters, bring a little bit of sanity to the state government, they're going to reinvest, and that's where we're going to turn our economy around.
What incentive do you have to move quickly with your legislative agenda if you don't have a new governor seated?
Well, in a lot of cases, again, sending a message, especially to the business community, to those that are looking, to job providers that are deciding whether it's Austin, Texas, or it's Albert Lee, or it's Minnetonka. If we can tell them we're going to do something to reform the regulatory process here, to reform the permitting process, so it doesn't take you 9 months to build a building. It'll take you as long as it takes the contractor to put up the walls and lay a slab. That's the message we're going to send to the business community, to job providers, and so that those that are worried about their jobs, because there's still a lot of people who are fully employed, but are worried that they're the next one to go. The next layoff next month, the first of the month.
Both caucuses in prior years, your caucuses were very critical of the pace of a legislative session. That everything, there'd be hearings around the state, everything gets pushed to the back to the last days of the session. Will we see something different?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to move as quickly as possible, again, to reinvigorate our economy, to bring those job providers back, to keep them here, and to hope that they can expand. Whether that's in the first 2 months, 2 weeks, we're going to be as aggressive as we can to move the process up. But as Representative Kriesel said, compromise is going to be the at the end of the day. If there's good ideas that come up, though, we're encouraging all of our members, DFL members as well. Whatever's a good idea to bring jobs back into the state of Minnesota, bring them to us now. Let's get started on it right now.
State economist Tom Stinson said one way to put people back to work quickly is to pass a bonding bill for shovel-ready projects. Are you willing at all to consider bonding bill?
I think that's a January discussion again. After President's admission that maybe shovel-ready wasn't necessarily really shovel-ready. I think we need to be very careful. Again, the taxpayers, the folks that are footing those bonding bills for decades, and our kids who are going to be paying them off, they want to know what it is it's going to be spent on, and is it really going to deal with infrastructure? But that's a January conversation. We're not going to be able to pass a bonding bill in December or November, so we'll get to that first thing. If there is truly some need out there, I think the special session just a few weeks ago showed that we can work together.
Did you expect the number of new faces behind you today? Is this a bit of a surprise, the number of people?
Each election you go in and you think there's a possibility here, there, but based on the candidates we had, we thought that there was some real possibilities with some of our great candidates. I mean, a guy like John Kriesel comes along once in a lifetime. Somebody who's given of his country and of himself like that is just unbelievable. We don't see a John Kriesel every election cycle. So when you see a candidate like that willing to step forward and run for office, that's a pretty amazing thing. That gives you hope that it's possible. Thanks, everybody.